Will Martin Truex Jr. retire at the end of this season? That's the biggest question going on in the NASCAR Cup Series right now. Really, ever since the 2015 season, for the past 8 to 9 years, we have been seeing fan favorites of our childhood. If at least you're around my age, around the 20s, in your 20s, we've been seeing fan favorites walk away. Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Matt Kenseth, Jimmy Johnson, just to name a few. And this year's no different. I mean, last year we saw Kurt Busch walk away, albeit prematurely. This year we have Kevin Harvick walking away. Eric Almirola looks like he's going to be walking away as well. And all eyes are on Martin Truex Jr., who has still not made a decision as to whether or not he will be returning next season. Now, Truex gave himself two criteria to whether he would want to keep racing full time in the Cup Series. Number one, he needs to be competitive. He doesn't want to be missing the playoffs for multiple years. He doesn't want to be going winless for the rest of his career. He needs to be competitive and at the top of his game and at the top of the field. I think it's fair to say he's been covering that so far. I mean, he just dominated New Hampshire just a couple days ago. So that's number one. Number two, he needs to be having fun. And I think we can all agree that that's a pretty big criteria. And I'd be saying, oh, why wouldn't you want to be having fun? Or why is that a criteria? If you're not having fun with what you want to do as a job, what are you doing? But that's a discussion for another episode. So you might be thinking, for the fact that number one, Truex has been winning multiple races the entirety of the season. He's currently the points leader, and you look at and you see the look on his face, and he looks happier than ever. You might be thinking that he's going to come back next year just off of default for the fact that he's made his two criterias to come back next season. But when they were talking to Martin Truex Jr., the media at least, after his New Hampshire win yesterday, and they asked him, not necessarily why, or not necessarily if he's coming back, because he's been dodging those questions ever since the season began, but rather why he wouldn't come back, for what we have alluded to before. And he talked about really two things: the grind of the Cup Series and the commitment you need in the Cup Series. And if that's what's holding Martin Truex Jr. back from wanting to go full time again, can you blame him? I mean, folks, let's be honest here. Truex is in his 40s. He's starting a new chapter in his life, new girlfriend, new things going on. We know he has a life outside of motorsports. Obviously, he's huge into fishing. So Truex has a life outside of racing. He's not getting any younger. And yes, we could say he's at the top of his game. He's leading the points, for crying out loud. The older you get, unless you're Harry Gant or Dale Earnhardt, really the older you get, you start to fall. You start to fall back to the means. I mean, even Kevin Harvick this year, he's I think 48 or 49. He's still doing pretty good, but he's still winless. So the older you get, it's not like he's going to improve in performance. So there's that. He has a life. And that life gets conflicted a lot with the grind of a near year-long schedule. I mean, folks, how long the Cup Series runs till? We're talking to the beginning of February till the beginning of November. And before NASCAR made all the changes in 2020, it was till nearly the end of November. So we're talking about these drivers really only getting 2 months to just relax, chill, have a life. And they only have one off week. And you might be thinking to yourself, oh, they just work essentially 3 days out of the week. They only have to worry about practice, qualifying, and they only have to worry about when they're on track. Really? You don't think they have to pay attention when it comes to sim data, team meetings, sponsorship obligations? You name it. There's a lot more that goes to being a driver than just showing up to the track and driving a race car. And even if that was only the case, you think it's easy to go from basically every point in the country and what looks to be next year outside the country? It's not easy. I can guarantee it. And I'm not even a driver, but I can even understand and see how grueling and difficult that is for how long it is. So that commitment to basically say, I'm going to sacrifice 10 months of the year to this sport, to driving this race car, which again isn't easy in and of itself. When you're driving in a basically 140-degree coffin, if you will, that ain't easy. And especially when you think that, that goes into the next point that we're going to talk about, the commitment. I just laid out why racing in the Cup Series is no joke in terms of the commitment level that you need. Again, you're basically asking the drivers, the teams, everybody involved to take 10 months out of the year to essentially doing their job. You need commitment like no other. I don't want to compare it to the NFL because the NFL is easily the most physically demanding sport in the United States because, well, yes, motorsports, you're driving easily faster. It is arguably more dangerous. You're not getting tackled by 300-pound men. But even then in the NFL, they're only playing for 5-6 months. They still got half of the year to recover, to rest, to get back going. What do NASCAR drivers get? 2 and change in terms of months. And even then, if you want to count the banquets, all the tire tests, less than that. So they don't really get as much time to just relax and settle down. It's one of the main reasons why a lot of fans have been clamoring to shorten the schedule from 36 to maybe 30 races, even though I think 28 would be the perfect number. But that's just me. So you have all that, and you have a driver who's not getting any younger, who's at the twilight of his career. Well, yes, he's still highly competitive. How long is he going to be that competitive for? And let's say you're Mark Truex Jr. and you think, okay, I'm going to keep running another year. Look what Eric Almirola did this year. He was supposed to retire last year. He wasn't even supposed to be in the car this year, but he came back. Obviously for sponsorship reasons, but he came back. He postponed his retirement. And now he's having easily the worst season of his entire career. Only one top 10, 27th in points, not even a thought in terms of the Cup Series, in terms of who drives in the Cup Series. I don't think Truex would ever get to that mark because Joe Gibbs Racing is a million miles ahead of Stewart Haas. But what if Truex decides, I'm going to postpone my retirement to 2024? And then he has a year similar to 2022. Doesn't win a race, flounders in the top 5 and misses the playoffs. When you really want to go out like that, or like he mentioned in his press conference, go off on a high note. I mean, he's the points leader. He's the championship favorite in a lot of people's eyes. He's probably going to make it to Phoenix. And if Loudon is any indicator, he's going to do great at Phoenix. He might go out as a champion, as a 2-time champion. He might pull a Nico Rosberg. So if you have that opportunity and you're already having doubts, why not take that? Why not just say, you know what? I'm going to call it quits after this year. And it's not like he's the only driver to announce his retirement midway through the season. Multiple drivers have done that. Clint Boyer did that back in 2020. And I remember because I saw the news in my high school class and I made a scene out of it. Dale Jr. did that in 2017. So he's not the only driver to do that necessarily. A lot of drivers have announced their retirement midway through the season. And it was interesting. I was listening to the teardown from the folks of The Athletic. It was a Jordan Bianchi and Jeff Gluck. And Jeff Gluck mentioned something pretty interesting. He mentioned that he heard from somewhere that a lot of industry members say that the way Truex was talking, most of them believe that he won't be in the car next year. He'll be done after this year. And for a lot of reasons I've already mentioned, the commitment. You got to commit yourself to 10 months out of the year to drive these grueling race cars all across the country, or some cases outside the country. You need that commitment. And the team deserves that commitment too. Because let's be honest here, folks, you think that the 19 team, yeah, a lot of them were from the Furniture Road days. But Truex even mentioned this in his press conference. The team deserves a driver who is fully committed to them. If Truex isn't fully committed to his team, then by his logic, the team doesn't deserve him. So, will Martin Truex Jr. come back next season? With the way he's talking, I don't think so. I think we're witnessing Martin Truex Jr.'s final season in the Cup Series. I mean, he's winning, he's having fun, and he's still having doubts. If he's meeting his own criteria and he's still second guessing as to whether he should return or not, that tells me he already has 1 foot out the door. And usually with these drivers, if they have 1 foot out the door, they're more than likely going to commit. Unless you're a case like Eric Almirola, where you come back. Very rarely do we see drivers come back. Or if we do, they come back on a part-time basis. And I can see Truex doing that. I can see him pulling a Mark Martin, if you will, where he retires from full-time, but maybe he drives the 67 for 2311 on a part-time basis. And he runs a couple races a year, just to scratch that itch. I can see him doing that next year. But full-time wise, I think he's done. I think he's already got 1 foot out the door. And what more does he have to prove? He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's already a Cup Series champion, might be a 2-time Cup Series champion by the end of the season. He's won multiple races throughout his career. He's rejuvenated his legacy with Toyota. And he'll go down as one of the greatest to ever wheel a stock car. I mean, what more does Martin Truex Jr. have to prove? He's having fun. Yes, he is. He's winning. He's competitive. But if that's not enough for Truex at this point, I really don't think anything will be. So I think at the end of this season, Martin Truex Jr. will retire as a full-time Cup Series driver. But that's just my take. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, please like, share, and subscribe to the show at the Motorsport Ministry. If you guys want to see us on all our other platforms, you can follow us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, Amazon Music, iHeart Radio, iTunes, and of course YouTube as well. That's where you'll find the video version. If you guys want to follow me on my social medias, you can follow me on Twitter and TikTok at Motor Minister. Thank you guys so much for tuning in as always, and we will see you in the next one.